All right, you want to kick it off and I'll jump in?
Yeah. All right. Welcome, guys. This is one of our series in the Urfel at Home. We're here working with the At Your Table team to bring you some Urfel recipes that you would see on site. Chef Jim is going to go through two recipes today. You guys are lucky. We have a breakfast and then more of a dinner recipe. And we'll go through that, and Chef Jim's going to talk to us about what they do with Urfel, what they don't do with Urfel, and then go through these two meals, the best way to cook them. And then I have some questions for him about substituting things and just a couple different questions about like the nutritional value that we can talk about.
Rightio. So, hey guys, thanks for joining this morning. My name is Jim. I'm the regional chef for the Intuit portfolio and based out of Northern California, and proud to be here to partner with the Fitness Center team and talk to you guys a little bit about our internal wellness program for Intuit called Eat Right for Life. I'm sure you're familiar with it. We use the brand across all the cafes to advertise what we're cooking in a healthy style. I have some couple slides to share the screen with you guys so you can we can talk through the parameters of the program a little bit, and then we'll talk recipes after that. So first slide I'm sharing here is our Eat Right for Life meal musts. So these are guidelines that were set up for us by Intuit that we follow in all the cafes across the country here. Really basic information, but gives us as chefs and cooks guidelines to follow to be able to provide these healthy meals every day. And as you may or may not know, they're also subsidized by Intuit as an incentive to promote healthy eating. So all these meals are $2.99 versus our normal cafe pricing. Each meal comes with 4 ounces of protein. Doesn't necessarily have to be animal-based protein. Vegetable or plant-based proteins are acceptable as well for our protein portion of the entree. And then the starch and vegetables are also 4 ounces each. And each meal comes with either hand fruit or a small soup or unsweetened iced tea. So portioning, guys, is really the key to this program working. We do have these parameters set for us, as you can see here, giving us some guidelines on what products we can and cannot use. So I'm just going to run through those real quick. Chicken breast versus chicken thighs, less fat, and the protein content is nice and clean. So we use a lot of chicken breast and turkey breast as well. There's a couple examples here of some plant-based proteins that we use. In addition to that, we also feature a plant-based protein called Beyond Meats, which is a beef substitute, more or less, but it's a completely plant-based protein. Very flexible product that we can use and prepare in a range of ways. So we have a recipe bank that we use as a company that provides nutritional information and measurements for us, so that way we can follow them as guidelines and use the healthy cooking techniques to create these wonderful, healthful-minded meals. Some other protein examples there are beans and legumes, as well as fish and shellfish. Bottom line with the meats and veggies there, it looks like it's just low-fat items, including the eggs and egg whites down there, which are always cage-free in our cafe. I will point out, from a sustainability standpoint, we also have besides the cage-free age, we also use hormone-free animal proteins as well. Some of the acceptable starches there, as we can see, is brown rice, whole grains, or wheat pasta, preparing potatoes with minimal fat. Lots of great tubers out there, like sweet potatoes and carrots and root vegetables. Sweet corn we like to use when it's in season. And then, of course, we have the whole grains down there, the quinoas and barleys and bulgurs of the world that are awesome in different ethnic dishes that we can use to prepare a nice healthy starch. And then some low starch vegetables, for example, like leafy greens like the collard greens and kales, Brussels sprouts, and some other cruciferous vegetables are things that we feature on these stations as well. Lots of great veggie options or vegetables there. And then cooking methods is a very important part of this program, guys. The way we prepare the food, we want to keep healthiness in mind when we're doing this. So low-fat cooking methods like grilling and baking, broiling and roasting. Okay, so we can use minimal fat or let the vegetables roast or meats or vegetables roast naturally, so they're nice and clean. My favorite is steaming, actually. We have a wonderful steamer at work, but at home, I have just a simple bamboo steamer, kind of like what you see at dim sum restaurants, that just fits over a saute pan with water in it. You fire that bad boy up, and boy, I've cooked everything from shrimp to salmon to chicken to a variety of different vegetables. And then the way I like to do it is just preparing them in their natural state and then applying some sort of seasoning or flavor after they come out of the steamer. I also like the flavor of extra virgin olive oil, so I use that to kind of give them a little bit of flavor as well, but that's a healthy fat for us. We limit the amount of salt that we're using. Again, we have these recipes, and I'll share with you guys an example of the recipes that we're featuring in Fredericksburg often, but we want to make sure we keep an eye on the salt content so we don't over-season things. Here's a list of nevers.
It's awesome to see the rules you guys, not rules, but guidelines that you guys follow. Obviously, the Eat Right for Life meals are supposed to be good for us, but it's nice to see the why behind it and like what are the guidelines that you guys follow for each meal.
Yeah, these are great parameters, definitely. So can you see the screen of nevers? I want to make sure we switched.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so here's a list of nevers. So we have the good stuff, and here's the things that we should never be doing. So we should always be following the cooking methods that we just talked about. But here's some cooking methods that we call out as the things that we should never be doing for Urfel meals. And that's deep frying or shallow frying, anything that involves using excess fat as a cooking method. So we're not allowed to do that. Don't want to make sure we're steaming or roasting or grilling. And then we avoid the use of fat-heavy dairy products like butter and cream, half and half. And then, of course, our artificial trans fat cooking oils as well. So we're looking at either canola or olive oil. We just choose recipes that don't involve butter or cream. One example of a trick that I like to use is like to make a parsnip puree. Instead of mashed potatoes, you just steam the parsnips until they're soft, mash them, and then you really don't have to put anything else on them. You can mash them just like a mashed potato. They got great flavor and natural sweetness. You don't have to put any salt on there, but just a touch of salt, and you're really off to the races, and you got a nice, healthy, clean starch or base for a meal there. So that's a good tip. And then, of course, never use excessive salt. Very little, just to heighten the flavors, if any at all. And then portion size we talked about. So we never want to go over the 4-ounce portion limit. It doesn't say it on any of these lists, but our goals also for all these meals is that the entire plate is less than 500 calories. We use our recipe data bank to help provide that information, and we're actually, coming soon, we are going to have a full-time registered dietitian as part of our management team on the portfolio. So once we get that position filled, we're going to be able to even take this to another level with their partnership as well. We never open without an Urfel special. I know Fredericksburg is a smaller cafe, so there may be less options there than, say, Mountain View, where we have multiple stations, but they should be having an Urfel special every day, at least one, if not at each station that you guys have. So it must be available daily. It can be offered as an entree at any of the stations, actually. I know in Mountain View we do it at 5 stations in the cafe. Out of 9 stations, we have 5 Urfels every day, including a full-time Eat Right for Life station. So we kind of create specials at each station depending on what we're serving there that day, and we just follow these guidelines to make a healthy option there as well. And of course, we brand it so you guys can find it easily with the Eat Right for Life. We never use saturated fat proteins there. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's good to know that you have so many options.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So high-fat proteins, we touched on that a little bit earlier, but stuff like dark meat, canine poultry, there's 2 different blends of ground beef that we can get. So we use the leaner option for us, including ground turkey. As far as pork goes, we use leaner cuts of pork, like pork loin versus pork shoulder or pork belly or stuff like that, that has a lot of fat in it. So we do serve pork. It is very limited in that it has to be a low-fat cut. But there's lots of things that you can do. In fact, I'm going to share with you a pork recipe in a minute here. So that's something that we keep in mind when we're selecting what ingredients to use. Certain cuts of beef that are high in fat we stay away from. Also, sausages, bacon, and hot dogs. I mean, those are all, the whole purpose of those is to have a nice, juicy, fat meal. So we want to keep those off of there too. But we definitely have them in the cafe, so you can use that as your cheat meal or your treat later on.
There you go.
So that's really cool. Yeah. All right, I'm going to find switch here. So can we see the pork recipe on the screen? Thumbs up.
Yes.
Anybody? Awesome. Thanks. So here's what our recipes look like. This is not Better Homes and Gardens or Martha Stewart. This is something that's provided for us by our culinary leadership. Again, these are all recipes that are developed and measured out for us to use as tools to be consistent in providing accurate, or at least very close to accurate, information in regards to nutritionals. So you can see all of the different measurements, a list of ingredients here, talk about cooking techniques. All right, so we use pork loin here, as you can see. It's a lower fat cut of pork, but it still turns out tender and juicy and delicious here. I'm inspired by reading or taking a look at this recipe with you guys today as I'm at home and planning my next week of menus for my family. And guess what I'm going to be making? These flavors here really resonate with me, but you can see we're not adding any salt here. We're using very limited amount of sugar, using honey as a sweetener, and then just, using spices and other flavorings here to bring us this ethnic style of cooking pork.
Yeah, and for anyone on the call, we have these recipes in our box folder that we can share with you if you're interested. Just put in the chat box if you want that, and it's also in the newsletter that we send out. So my question on this one is, say someone has a pork loin, but they don't necessarily like the Asian-inspired take on it. Are there some different, obviously they could keep like the honey and the light brown sugar. Is there a different sauce and maybe spice that they could use to still keep this healthy, but have a little bit of a different flavor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sky's the limit here, depending on what you have in your house. But something I always recommend to folks who are trying to eat healthier is a trick that I use to create interesting and healthy meals that are not necessarily laden with heavy sodium or sugar content. I use olive oil and fresh herbs, so it's very natural. It brings out a very beautiful presentation at the end, and it just lightly flavors everything. So herbs, depending if you have a garden or not, or you can get them at the grocery store, obviously. But if you do garden, usually herbs are a staple. So I literally just go out my back door and grab some rosemary. I've got some mint that's running in the field behind my house, so I can just grab a bushel of mint if I want. But chopping up some fresh herbs, whatever you like, and then using olive oil. So one recommendation I will say, if you're using something like rosemary or thyme or sage, they're not very palatable to eat them raw. Usually when they're cooked, they open up and toast a little bit better. So when I'm using what I call hard herbs like rosemary or thyme, I make sure that they go into the marinade or they go onto the protein or vegetable before you roast them. Soft herbs like basil or parsley or mint, you can eat those fresh just like a salad. So you can either put them on before you cook, or you can use them as a garnish afterwards. I find this to be a very healthful way to make food interesting, and you can change up the flavors based on what you have. But if you don't have fresh stuff and you don't have any herbs, there's tons of different sauces and stuff available. I also recommend using vinegars. It's kind of a palate waker, and it also enhances the flavor because of the acid. Citrus works the same way. Salt, is used to heighten flavors, and if you don't want to, have a lot of sodium intake, these are ways that I use to heighten flavors without using salt. So the zest of a lemon, a splash of vinegar, all these things are making my mouth water right now. They open up your taste buds, guys, to get all that good food in there. And like I said, it's a flavor enhancer without adding unwanted ingredients to it.
That's awesome. And you know, another thing I was going through this recipe was um, I've never made anything except instant rice, and on the more simpler version of this, it has you rinsing the rice. And I learned about 2 weeks ago that when you make real rice, you have to rinse it. Can you tell us why, from a chef standpoint, that that's important? Because I had no idea till about 2 weeks ago, and I think it's a cool thing
Yeah.
to learn.
It is pretty cool, and you don't. I mean, you don't always have to. People think you might be rinsing off the nutrients, but everything that you want to get from rice is in the grain. And you know, the reason we wash stuff like that is just because in packaging, in transit, in production, all those little grains, they kind of rub together and release their starch into a powder form. So if you cook it like that, it might possibly give you a different texture. So when you're rinsing off the grains first, you're releasing all that powder that's around it. Nothing wrong with it. It's not going to hurt you, but it gives you a different texture. So if you like rice that is light and fluffy and not sticking together, it's a good trick to rinse it off first.
Nice.
Yeah.
You want to work
All right. Go to
into this
breakfast.
one?
Yeah. Let me see the next one, the omelet. Okay. All right. So this is an example of a dish that is served currently in Fredericksburg, and it's a basic omelet here, but you can see all the fresh ingredients that we're using in here. Obviously, you can sub out with whatever you have in your pantry at home. But again, this is just an example of guidelines that we use to provide at different day parts, including breakfast as well. So this is an omelet made with egg whites, just a limited amount of cheese in there, and some nice fresh vegetables for a nice healthy breakfast.
Yeah, and the first thing that comes to mind with this one is that in our newsletter on Monday, we put out how different colored vegetables can give you so many different health benefits. And just looking at this with the green bell peppers, you know, you get help with your muscles and your bones, but another way to add in some other different colors there are just simply changing up the colors of your peppers. You know, put some red bell peppers, some orange bell peppers. You can get in more heart healthy, more skin with the orange, even a yellow bell pepper, depending on what kind of onions you use, whether you want to use sweet yellow onions or a little bit of the red onions. You can get different health benefits by adding in those different colors. And with an omelet like this, it's so easy to kind of interchange those colors there. And then as far as the egg whites, do you have, so it says liquid egg whites at home, say we're going to the grocery store and we can't find that can of liquid egg whites. Do you have a secret to separating an egg yolk from an egg white from a chef's standpoint?
Yeah, definitely. Well, at work we use gloved hands, but there are tools on the market that you can buy. But yeah, if you crack an egg into your palm, you can see my hand, and you just hold the yolk in the center, the egg white will go through, and you just kind of shake it until it all releases down there. We use the pasteurized in our units to make sure it's a safe product for everybody. You can easily separate your own eggs at home, and usually the liquid eggs come in a carton where egg substitutes are sold. So if you're looking for it in your grocery store, they usually have it there. But it's not unless you're going to eat a lot of it. I wouldn't recommend buying it for your home use. I would just separate my own personally. Another tip too that I thought of while we were talking about, because you were talking about all the different ingredients that you can use and what it brings to the table. I mean, you can think outside the box and how do I bring some antioxidants or some anti-inflammatories into this meal, and it's something that I do at home that you might enjoy a tip for. When I'm heating up the oil in my pan before I add my vegetables, I add in, once the oil gets a little bit warm, I add in about a teaspoon of turmeric powder and just kind of swirl it around in the pan, and it really toasts up the turmeric a little bit. Then I add my vegetables and I add my eggs. So all that toasted turmeric is going into the omelet, and I enjoy the flavor of that a lot, and I know it's got some really great health benefits to it. So I'm always looking at, how can I get this stuff into my body and really partake in the benefits of them. I just did a tonic recipe for somebody, which is a really quick tea that you can make for yourself by just adding some sliced lemon and sliced fresh ginger to your teacup, and you put a teaspoon of turmeric in there, maybe a teaspoon of honey, and then you just pour hot water over it. You let it all steep together a little bit, and you got all these great ingredients in there that provide these wonderful health benefits. So, I might not do it every day, but I did it yesterday for sure. I use that as my afternoon kind of beverage. Yeah, it really helps with cleansing as well.
Yeah, and that's a great morning time beverage too, to go with an omelet, and stub your coffee out for an anti-inflammatory drink like that. I put fresh ginger in hot water a lot for those, and use turmeric a lot. I love the idea of tossing the vegetables in that. Great anti-inflammatories, especially if people are working out with us a lot. It's great benefits for sure. Definitely a helpful tip. My last question before we open it up to everyone else is, obviously when we eat a lot of egg yolks, it can increase our cholesterol intake. So that's one benefit of eating egg whites. Would this recipe, do you have to cook when you're cooking an omelet? Are your cooking methods different when you're using egg whites versus whole eggs? And also, what about mixing some egg whites in with whole eggs? Like, do you have to cook it longer? You have to be more careful?
Yeah, the egg whites do tend to stick a little bit. I'm sure if you're an egg white person, you go up to our station in the cafe, usually egg whites are a little bit more challenging because of the fat content from the yolk is gone, which I think helps it coagulate and not stick to the pan. The trick is just making sure that the pan is hot enough when you start. And then, I like to cook with extra virgin olive oil. You got to be careful not to burn it because it does have a lower smoke point, and you can burn it versus like a grapeseed oil or canola oil, which has a higher smoke point, which means it can get hotter. Anyway, the trick I would say for egg whites is making sure that the pan is hot. And I like to use some sort of healthy fat to help it prevent it from sticking. I know some folks are trying to avoid fat altogether, so it gets a little tricky. And we do use like a pan spray, which is just a spray form of a healthy cooking fat versus using like a nice little teaspoon of olive oil or something like that. So the hot pan is going to help a lot because that will help prevent it from sticking a little bit. But you can use whole eggs in this recipe. Someone might even ask, like, what do I do with the extra egg yolks if I'm separating my eggs? Well, I usually incorporate them because my wife likes egg whites. I like whole eggs, so I'll just take her yolk and add it to mine. But watching for cholesterol is very important. So consult your doctor on what you should and shouldn't be eating. But for me, everything's portioning. If you're eating 6 eggs in the morning, and you can get by with 2, that's how I would make sure watching portions keeps me on a healthy track as far as what I'm eating.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, if anyone that's watching has any questions, feel free to bring yourself off mute and ask, or type them in the chat box. Answer any questions you might have about the Urfel system or how it works, any of the recipes today.
Any questions at all, guys?
All right. Well, with silence, I don't think we have any. We had a couple people ask for the recipes. Those are in the chat box if you guys would like them.
Yeah. I have a good story to share that we talked about earlier this week that some of us might enjoy. But somebody asked a question on our last session about the health benefits of pureeing your food into smoothie form versus eating it like that. What are the benefits? And again, I'm not an expert, but I did learn this on a podcast that subject matter had an expert on there, and they were talking about the fact that when you chew your food, it creates saliva and enzymes in your mouth that go with the food into our digestive system, and that help distribute all of the healthy nutrients in our food to our bodies. And when you puree all the food, you're definitely getting all those nutrients, but your body doesn't process it as well as it does as when you chew because you're missing the saliva aspect of it. I didn't know that. I thought that was pretty cool. For a long time, I was trying to eat healthier, and as a chef, you're busy, you don't always have time. So I was like making basically a salad in the blender and pureeing everything, and then just kind of gulping it down to get all my good stuff in at one time. And I never even thought of the fact that my body might not be able to process it as well as it would if I was eating it and creating those enzymes in my mouth. So I thought that was a pretty cool tip. check out the internet for more information on that. But thought I'd share that little scenario with you
Yeah,
guys.
that's a great tool. And it also, so fruits and vegetables with the skin of an apple or the crunch in spinach, they do have fiber in them as well. So when you put
Yeah,
them in a blender
exactly.
like that, you're basically breaking down all the fiber molecules and taking that part of the digestion out as well. So yeah, lots of benefits from just actually eating your food. Smoothies are great, but not to live off of.
Yeah, exactly. Once in a while, good thing to do, but eating is the way our bodies were designed to process everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chef Jim. Doesn't look like we have any questions, but we appreciate you and
Okay,
look forward to lots
pleasure.
of new recipes when we get back.
Yeah, we're all excited too. Stay safe, everybody, and thanks for joining our session today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.